Talking Notre Dame football, and the Irish at number 5 in the current college football playoff rankings that were released last night. But we're not going to focus on Notre Dame's football standing as they try to march to the college football playoff. We bring in Macy Golder, who's done some recent work within college football with Rutgers Our Vision, connected to the Big Ten Network, and also the Giant Insider. Macy, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So in addition to the huge win for Notre Dame on the field against a pretty pesky Temple club, there was also an incident on the sideline involving head coach Brian Kelly grabbing an assistant coach and preventing or trying to prevent a situation that could have caused a 15-yard penalty in a very close football game. So just your take on the situation, the way you saw it, and basically looking at what you've heard since then about the situation.
Yeah, so, in a game like that where it's a one-possession game, the last thing you want to do is cause a distraction, and cause a distraction on your own sideline, and then cause a distraction from coach to coach. So when the players have to jump in the middle of Kelly going after an assistant coach, that's going to cause a distraction when all he was trying to do was prevent a 15-yard penalty. At that point, maybe you take the 15 yards rather than put your whole team in a predicament of, oh my goodness, this is one possession. We could lose this game like that. I think that Kelly kind of spoke of the situation, not so much as an apology, but as we took it internally and we handled it. But there's still kind of a question, what really went on and what way did they react, and which way did the team react from what happened on their sidelines with their own head coach?
Yeah, so Brian Kelly is a very fiery coach. We've seen this a number of times in a number of ways. It's usually directed either at his players, and he's had some somewhat controversial interactions with players, not in an extremely violent way, but he likes to get pretty intimate with his players and grab and hold them at times to get their attention. He's not done anything overtly wrong on the sideline there. He's fiery when it comes to his interactions with officials as well. We know that we're talking about an alpha dog male world when we talk about college football sidelines and on the field. We saw an incident several weeks ago with the new Florida head coach Jim McElwain getting in the face of Kelvin Taylor, who had celebrated a little too heavily, caused a 15-yard penalty, and McElwain really got in his face. It was picked up by cameras and iPhones surrounding the area, so that was blown out of proportion in my sense, from my take. So as I see this, Macy, I think that people need to conduct themselves as professionals and as civil people. We have to understand the forum as well, and I think that there is a sanctum there, even though it's on the sideline and it's within full view of the crowd, full view of all the cameras to catch it, that once they hit the sideline, that there's a certain level of language that should be allowed and decorum or lack thereof, because we're talking about a high, intense, feverish situation involving coaches and players trying to win a football game, and it being a very intense physical game and situation.
Right, I agree. And Kelly said that he's responsible for the sidelines, and he did say that his sideline was not where it was supposed to be. There was unnecessary celebrations for a touchdown, which he said were totally unnecessary and inappropriate. And he just took the responsibility of, hey, I need to do this better, and I need to control myself. But I think what this really should boil down to at the end of the day is that this should be a message for all coaches, and maybe just a reminder that only the head coach should be the one talking to the refs, because I feel that is what really just happened, and it could have been avoided if that assistant didn't speak to the ref. This issue never would have happened. So maybe it's just a reminder for all coaches to say, hey guys, if you got an issue, come to me and I'll take care of it, and I'll address it with the ref, instead of taking it into your own hands, especially a young guy that this happened with.
Well, Macy, we live in a different world than what we see out of football going back to the 50s and the 60s, where the players that played the game, they didn't argue with the officials. They didn't jaw back and forth a whole lot unless it was a really heated moment, but that wasn't necessarily part of the game. And it's just kind of become a part of the game where everybody sticks up for themselves and for their teammates. And so there's a lot of jawing all over the place. But I completely agree with you in regards to sideline decorum and communication to the officials. The officials cannot have all sorts of people trying to communicate to them and yelling and screaming at them. That needs to come through the head coach, and he needs to be the sounding board or the voice of the sideline and the football team there. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, and you mean some? I mean, I'm still one of those people. I don't want to say I'm old school because I'm still kind of young, but I agree you need to learn your lesson. So maybe Kelly should have let this go, and he should have let that assistant coach get the penalty for the team, and maybe that could have had a different outcome on the game, and that loss would have been put on him as an assistant coach, someone who's so young, and that would have been something he would have had to deal with.
So the two things I like out of Brian Kelly here in the aftermath is, number one, it seems as though he's taken accountability for his actions and the lack of discipline out of the sideline in general and these particular coaches. So he's taken accountability for that. And number two, that he is not talking about to the media what was discussed between he and the other assistants and so forth. That's a team matter that needs to be taken care of behind closed doors. So I'm good there with Brian Kelly in regards to his handling of the situation after the situation, maybe a little bit intense in the moment in his handling of the situation, and the assistant coach right there. All right, Macy Golder joining us from most recently doing some work this past summer with Rutgers Our Vision as part of the Big Ten Network, and also right now with the Giant Insider doing some NFL work. So Macy, can you let us know what exactly you're involved in with the Giant Insider?
Yeah, so Giant Insider, every week I attend the games, well, home games, and I try to find a story that's a little different. So this past week I wrote a story about Odell Beckham and the Madden curse. Is it still a thing? Is it still not a thing? Comparing Odell's numbers from last season to where he is now, since he pretty much only came out as a half star, in the second half last year. So we took those numbers, compared them up, and I must say, something happened to Odell. I don't know if you read my article, but he really stepped it up this past weekend, and he caught catches when they mattered rather than showing off that one hand or, inbounds. So I try to find fun things to write about, something different, something rather than just a game recap or something that you just say, yeah, okay, we read this already, or this or that. So that's a lot of fun. It's a good challenge because you have to think outside the box, which I really, really enjoy.
That's good stuff. So you're telling us that Odell Beckham Jr. is playing just as well this season as in 2014, even though he hasn't done one of these deals?
You know what? I kind of wasn't Odell's, I don't want to say not his biggest fan in the article, but I did say he had to step it up a little bit. His numbers were not comparing, and he wasn't up to par. So, I mean, after this weekend, he kind of made me look goofy, but hey, that's sports.
Well, you can only address what's happened in the past. You can't predict what's going to happen in the future. So I'm going to give that article a look. I think everybody out there, since Macy's looking for some things, and this is difficult to do, believe me, on the internet with all the people that are writing and blogging about sports and the NFL in particular, to find an interesting topic and take off on it and look for the angle. So that's good stuff. Macy Golder, working for Giant Insider. Thanks so much for joining us, Macy.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.